doubled today, and I don't know why it doubled.
And we're live.
What?
Hello and welcome
Ah!
to the 64th episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm Matty Allen with ChrispyMan of HexFire.io, Tobiwan Hexobi, and Brisology. Welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going? How's everyone's week?
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Better than I deserve, Briz. How was your week?
I've been doing good.
Well, we got a lot to cover tonight, and we're going to get to the topic on the thumbnail and a whole lot more. So if you're ready for the 64th week of Game Theory Gang, hit the like and subscribe button, share this out. There's lots of good stuff coming. So where do you guys want to start?
Speculation.
There was much to talk about behind the scenes.
It's been so long since we had this stream last week that it feels like a crypto month. So I'm not even sure where to start.
Yeah,
absolutely.
there's a lot.
I mean, we got the SEC coming after Binance. We've got PulseChain.
That's the only justifiable action I've seen them take.
Check this out. The last time Toby was here, we had only burned 53 billion PLSX. As of now, we have 126 billion burned.
Getting close to my number.
I know mine was like 1369, so I guess I was just a week late in I overestimated by a week. So
PulseX hasn't stopped buying and burning. What else has been going on?
Burning up my LP fees. What up, Richard?
Yeah. Well, if you don't like it, you can go to V2.
Well,
yeah, that's true.
As of 4 days ago, PulseChain had its very first day, according to Richard.
Basically,
June 2nd was PulseChain's first day.
How do you know that?
What was that?
Tweeted it.
Yeah, he tweeted.
So he wrote it out in a tweet, or was there some other medium that this was communicated on?
No, he tweeted it.
No, it was a tweet. So the tweet says, you might consider today PulseChain.com's first day, because now everyone that has access to hashtag Ethereum also has access to $PLS. That wasn't the case yesterday. It's day and night difference. 1000x the on-ramp. So.
Wow. Okay, so you're assuming that Richard wrote that tweet.
No.
Was there any other like medium of media that you might have gotten this idea that PulseChain had its first day?
No, just direct from Richard's Twitter.
Like you didn't go to Richard's YouTube or anything like that in the past few days?
Maddie's just leading you along, Bruce. You gotta follow along.
I'm just wondering if we have any video evidence that Richard is saying this.
Well, there was a 13-second video.
Yeah.
Maddie, is that the one you're referring to?
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, that's right.
You have it queued up.
I totally forgot about that.
Okay,
it was
all right.
So quick. I had already forgotten about it.
Yes. So that was a 14-second video, I believe.
13.
When I
been 14, it should have been.
When
14.
I first saw it, I thought it was the introduction to your music video, Hexago. I'm like,
or the same thing, didn't he?
It's like, welcome to Hexago, right?
It was pretty
was
cool.
He wearing the same blazer?
No, he looked pretty sharp though, for the brief moment we saw him. I think that was the video he was kind of hinting at when he was asking about like settings for 8K uploads and whatever. So he had obviously pre-recorded that and threw it out there. But he had also said something about how he was waiting for the native Pulse bridge before he was going to do a live stream. So I was hoping like that would be soon. And then I think KDP called him on it as well, but not yet. But it's worth waiting on. It'll be fun when he finally gets out there. But I think he's probably waiting until like people are actually using it. I mean, if he's looking at it as technically like day one was just a few days ago, and you have access now. I mean, think about all those people that sacrificed for PulseX that did not have Pulse. They now have a way to get Pulse easily, right? And by using the native bridge and buying wrapped pulse on Ethereum, make sure that you're using the new wrapped pulse on Ethereum contract address, which he tweeted out. So you buy that one. I tested it out myself, which, cost effective, not quite, because I only did like $100, and like by the time I paid the Ethereum fees, I think I paid $20 in Ethereum fees, but it works. You toggle on the switch that says convert to PLS, and lo and behold, boom, your wrapped PLS comes into your wallet as PLS. And that should open up a lot of economic energy for those people that had PLSX and were wanting to trade for Pulse. So I think that that's exciting. And I heard there's some new on-ramps coming along too, the Pulse Burn guys, and then Portal X, I think, is going to be available soon. So, and then of course, Coast, that was the third one. They're doing their due diligence to work that out. But all of that stuff is hyper bullish in my opinion.
Yeah, and I hate to add this, but I think it's important, right? PSA. So we've been seeing people using fake bridges, and just be aware that if you use a fake bridge, you are going to lose your money, your crypto, and people cannot give it back to you because you no longer have it. You sent it to someone who was fake, and there's some pretty sophisticated ones out there. So please, please, please make sure that you're using the right addresses and that you're going to the right websites, because they basically ripped it off. It looks just like the right ones. So
yeah,
how do these people even find these fake bridges? I mean, I haven't even seen one.
I get all sorts of like Twitter posts and stuff with scammers, and it just takes 1 second for one of those to pop up, and somebody thinks, oh, that's it. They click on it, and they don't look back, and they don't know.
Dude, there's one that I saw through a Twitter post that some Hexagon had retweeted. I didn't have a chance to like call out the fakeness of it. I just looked at it really quick, and then I had house guests all last week. That's why I wasn't able to be on. So I looked at it really quick, and then I'm like, what the fuck? It's like it's not PulseChain.com. It's PulseChainSomething.com. And when you go to it, it looks just like PulseChain.com. And it has links to the bridge, links to the exchange, so it all looks the same. So, I mean, I was like, whoa, that's spooks. I mean, if that's not legit, that is spooky because it looks so legit. So what I tell anybody that's asking is go to PulseChain.com. That's it. And then all the links you need for the bridge, for the exchange, for validating, for all that stuff is there. And that's a website.
It's so funny because I'll have like onboards come to me, and I'm like, they're like, hey, I know you told me to use a MetaMask, but hey, Briz, what do you think about this wallet, kangaroo, elephant wallet, from this random website.
Right.
Is this safe? I'm like, bro, how do you find these things?
God, yeah, it's replete with scammery. But yeah, so be careful. That's definitely a good thing to start off with, is like just be cautious with what you're interacting with, and then we can dive into like the fun of like different speculation on yield farming and liquidity providing and trading and all the fun stuff that you can do now that Pulse is live.
You guys want to know what the thumbnail is about?
Yeah. What's the thumbnail about?
Well, I had to read it again, but it sounds fun if I'm interpreting it correctly.
I just realized lately that like we haven't gone back and revisited any of like the wildly crazy, cool, interesting, potentially speculative games that might be played on PulseChain now that it's launched. For example, there's a copy of every ERC20 that has popped up on PulseChain automatically, right? And,
wait, what?
Yeah. Believe it or not, many of these are not trading one for one with their original copy. Let's say
danger. Will Robinson.
So I've already seen, like, for example, I took like $200 worth of incentive token and put it into P Pepe, and it did like a 6x in 3 days.
Yeah.
Like what? And so it's really interesting to me, especially like the meme ones and everything. Like, if you don't want to kiss your $200 goodbye, then you probably shouldn't do this. But it's just interesting to me that like, you're making a play. You're trying to ask yourself, well, if this is only worth 1% of the original, if this forked copy is only worth 1%. Well, what if someday, because it's probably more rare on the PulseChain side of things, like, because not everybody's going to come and claim it. But if you do ever get a critical mass of people over here, let's say because the fees on Ethereum get to be too high in the next bull market, you could see some of this wild volatility where, some of these things might eventually be worth more than the Ethereum side. I'm not saying that they will be. I'm not saying that it's likely, but it's just an interesting side game, I guess.
Well, I agree with you. That's super interesting to me. And I don't know what took me so long to realize this, but let me just throw this at you, right? So I did fork over some Ethereum ERCs, right? And I have my copies of the PRCs.
Do you mean you bridged over?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I bridged them over. You gotta be careful with the vernacular here. I did bridge them over, and I had every intent long term to do bridged ERC to PRC, right? I had every intent to do that.
To provide liquidity, you mean?
Yeah, to provide liquidity there. But then after talking to some other guys and just being reminded over and over again, you go look at like the Binance wallets. There are millions and billions of tokens that they have on PulseChain. And so just from let's say there's something I really believed in a project and I really wanted the Pulse side to do well because it was a fork copy and kind of like what you're talking about, Maddie, that is heavy risk, right? Because there are lots of entities out there that did get copies of that stuff. And even if between the four of us, we decided we're going to do some stuff and we're having fun with it and that price pumps up, it just takes one of those whales to unload. Now, of course, they got to come in. So that's positive. They'd have to get Pulse. So that's positive that it would help the ecosystem. But if you were depending on any of those assets, that you traded like Pulse, which doesn't have that same kind of concern for, let's say, SHIB.
That is kind of a positive. They would need to buy at least $1 of Pulse to dump.
Yeah, but it might hurt you 200. Particularly if they can completely do it. So, anyways, I don't know that anybody's going to plan to do that or not do that. But I don't know why I wasn't thinking that as being a risk.
Yeah, I mean, people are getting just as racked paying fees on the Ethereum side during a bull market. So,
Totally.
maybe they will value their PLS copy someday. Maybe not, but either way, it seems to be working out for people in HEX at least.
Well, speaking of speculation, like that's something that we were talking about early on in the Pulse Plan group. In regard to actually even before that, just in like Pulse voice chat, I remember commenting like, "Hey, what coins are basically dead and gone on the Ethereum blockchain because the fees have become so punitive that those things are no longer cost effective to interact with." So those are the ones that I was like, hey, we should be reaching out to those communities, let them know that their copy's coming, and it might breathe new life into that whole.
How do you define not
ecosystem.
cost effective? What if onboarding somebody into a swap costs $50? Is that cost?
No, I'm talking about Link's not a good example, but another ERC20 that maybe was doing well on Ethereum. But
I have one. I know one.
Okay, perfect. Please.
Decentraland.
There you go. Right.
They were having major problems with the gas fees, right? They were one of the first ones. But, not to change the subject, but
no,
I just, I saw you told me of the Decentraland, but now, I just heard that they just got slapped with selling a security with Gensler. They're like one of the 6 cryptos or something that got slapped with selling securities. So even if they came over to PulseChain, I don't know if that would help them.
Right. But I'm sure there's others that are.
Well, do you think that their free copy is more of a security or less of a security?
If it's run by the same people and it has the same functionality, then probably the same rules apply, would be my guess.
I would say they sold a security and now they have a copy of a security. I don't know.
Right? That's kind of what I would think. But yeah, but like I know, for example, for Link, like there was a buddy of mine, one of my onboards, one of my VIP onboards. I've got like a little subset of onboards. I
Is
have a
it Dave
special.
Chappelle?
It is not Dave, unfortunately. Dude, I've been working on Dave and his wife for years, and it's like it gets close, and then they don't quite pull the trigger. So maybe once we get some green candles, they'll take more
Gotcha,
interest.
bitch.
I know, right? It's like I'm rich, bitch. But and then I even like try to get into Donnell Rollins, who's like the guy, like Ashy Larry from the Chappelle Show, because he's did a lot of those shows, the summer cornfield shows in Ohio that Dave does. And I had like a friend of a friend that knew him that got him some info about Hex. But maybe he's in already. Maybe Ashy Larry's in there, and maybe he'll get Dave to take a peek. But we'll see how that goes. One thing that was pretty cool. What was it? I lost it.
You were saying with a different onboard who's VIP.
Yeah. So the Link, he had done Link early on because he liked Chainlink on Ethereum and thought, hey, it makes sense for Link to come over and support its copy. So he was able to get in, and he did like a 78x or something. He traded like a small amount of his PHEX and got a bag of P-Link, for lack of a better term. I know that technically all of the tickers are just what they are on Pulse, and then the Ethereum equivalent is like E whatever, or technically you should say Link on Ethereum, but in the effort to make this more concise, P-Link, he traded his PHEX for P-Link, got like a 78x or something, and like put in 1,000 PHEX and got a 78,000 PHEX back out on a trade early on. And so it was like, that's pretty awesome that he was able to do that. So I think that there's
ratio trading.
Yep, ratio trading. That's
Speculative games or the future of crypto? ?
Be careful. It's kind of like any of the stuff that the way that I treat anything that's not a Richard Hart project is that's kind of like my play bag, right? So it's like if I got some free coins and I want to like swap them into some other stuff, or if I've got a little extra USDC that I'm just don't want to just buy, because I'm still buying EHEX. Like I bought EHEX last week, so so I've got a little play bag basically, and there's a lot of OGs that I talk to, and I just don't talk about it publicly because it's like I'm trying to adhere to Richard's path of least reckless, because if people go down those paths and they're not careful, they will absolutely lose all their money. They'll get wrecked. So it's like, if you got a small amount you want to play with, hey, it's your money, do what you want to do, just be cautious. And I think it's almost like a portfolio like in TradFi and traditional finance. It's like, you get your mutual funds, you get your bonds, you get your basics that are, maybe they don't have as high a return, but they're stable and reliable and safer. And then you have a small percentage of that portfolio where you're going into like AI tech stock stuff, or like something else that maybe has more risk and potentially more reward. So
it would be crazy if because part of the risk that people are saying, like, oh, our free copy of Pepe isn't going to be worth anything because somebody could always dump it. It'll be really interesting to me if any whales in any of these ecosystems decide to use time pays me to show the market that they can't dump the coins. Because what are they going to do with them anyway? There's not enough liquidity for them to sell right now. So in a low liquidity environment, why wouldn't they want to lock them up, put them on a drip, something where it gives the market more confidence? I'm sure that there will be at least one community that decides to do that, and then we'll get to see if that works out better for them than the others being slow on it.
Yep. Did you see the tweet from the guy that was like elated that he had made like $15,000 on his Pepe copy?
Mm-hmm. I heard.
And yeah, so yeah,
it, but I didn't see that.
Wait,
he had a
was
huge
that
bag. No, it wasn't you. It was some other guy. Did you make $15,000 on your?
No,
Pepe?
1,500.
No, 15 grand. So apparently this guy like stumbled across it and was like, holy shit, I've got this giant bag of Pepe that tanked, but I had copies over on this new PulseChain thing, and I was able to get 15,000 like USDC from Ethereum out of it. And he had like a 5-part tweet or something, and like went through the process.
I wonder
of,
if it was real USDC or if it was like the fork.
Dude,
Oh, no.
There's people that have done that too. I've seen him. I think Richard even replied to a guy that might have fallen victim to that. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy, dude. It's like you got to check contract addresses and like be sure what you're trading in and out of. It's the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as you take the right precautions and you go get those addresses, you can make sure they're in properly, have the right ones.
Well, hopefully on PulseX, it'll be part of its native list before long, so people aren't having to import constantly, you know? So,
So, guys, I think it might be official that farms are only on version 1, and V2 of PulseX is only going to have trading fees as rewards. What do you guys think of that? What's your initial?
I wouldn't consider that official, but I would consider it a strong possibility.
It's the current situation. We'll say that.
Okay. Fair point. You guys go first. I have some good stuff on this.
I'm holding out for V3.
I've got a non-comical response. I think eventually he's going to want to have everything on V2, and that little V1, V2 toggle will go away. Because I think that that's just another layer of complexity for people. Because like if there's certain coins like the ones we're talking about that you want to try to trade, and you're on V1, and that liquidity is thinner, you're going to get a much different price than if you just go up there and toggle to V2. So if people aren't paying attention, that's another little wrinkle in, not wrecking yourself.
Yeah, and just for context, right? When you say not the same price, sometimes 3 times, 5 times, 10 times higher. It depends on how the person who set up the V2 did. But when you do the V2, and then somebody comes and pushes the V2, you can make the system recalculate. And it will do that, but it creates some really weird things, right? Because eventually they equalize.
I was checking the prices on V1, V2, and they seemed like they were fairly like dead on. I don't know. I wasn't checking any radical pairs, but
yeah, I
guess
just
you
happened
guys
to
saw
look.
some differences.
Well, like, and what was it? It was Papa. They released their new thing, the B9 token. So I guess it's kind of a security token. It's like a companion token, I think is the way that they're describing it. So they're kind of vetting airdrops, and then people that are receiving those airdrops, they will also get this B9 token. So I don't know enough about it yet, but I just happened to be looking at that on both chains, and there was considerable price difference between V1 and V2.
I kind of thought like maybe Richard did this whole thing on purpose, just so we could have like an ultra burn on PulseX and stuff, and then like a week later, it's like just to keep people's attention going. Oh, look, we got V2 coming along, and now maybe like in a couple weeks we're gonna have V3, which could maybe have both the ink farms and the traditional fee collection on a single thing. That could be V3, and then maybe V4 he introduces like limit orders. It's just like a constant drip to keep people interested. But I don't know. What do you think, Maddie?
So the nature of this bug is that it started in Uniswap. So I think that rules out the possibility that Richard like had some master plan here. I think that this is something that got caught and fixed the same day. I think that it has led to an emergent property that could be to our advantage. Now, what could that be? So when I look, and I did some trades yesterday using V1, comparing V1 and V2, I was finding that for between the pairs of Pulse and PulseX that there was a significant difference between the prices. Okay. Now it wasn't enough, for me to tell somebody who's onboarding with $100, to really like tell them, hey, you're going to get a totally different price on this. But if you're trading $1,000, I think it did make enough of a difference that what I would do is I would just screenshot both of them and then compare them really closely, or pull up different, browser windows and stuff like that, so I can, basically see it in pretty much real time. So maybe we're talking about like 0.5% or something, but imagine how much arbitrage is happening when you have 0.5% of a difference on the same side of the chain. That is where the real fees are coming from for V2, if you ask me, is from people arbitraging the difference. If you're arbitraging, you can't be getting paid off of the ink, in my opinion, because you've got your liquidity locked up. However, and then if you have your liquidity locked in V2, that might be advantageous if you're trying to get a certain price and you're a whale and you don't want to, basically you want to set the price to be somewhere by adding liquidity, and then trying to fill it into your order is like kind of a really complicated strategy that we see like on Ethereum people are doing sometimes, or sorry, on Etherscan. That's what we can see people's strategy is. But in this case, I think that there's just a lot of money being made from that arbitrage opportunity. And guess what that means? That means that there's a lot more volume on PulseX. And that means that we are climbing the rankings higher, even though we don't have all of the users that I believe we could have in the future. And so I think that, this is really organic, the way that this has come about. It's not faked volume by any means, because people actually are probably getting rich by running arbitrage bots, this and that. But, in the meantime, we've seen in the past week that it's been easier for people to onboard onto PulseChain because of certain on-ramps that give them Pulse to unwrap their Pulse and that sort of thing. So having that native bridge, I think, is a big deal. So yeah, I mean, how awesome is that more PulseX is getting bought and burned because of this arbitrage situation that's playing out?
I think it's great.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I just think over time, it's like simpler is going to be better for people. So if there is, V1, V2, V3, V4, I think it's just going to make sense to kind of like usher people over. I don't know if there's some magic switch where you could just move all the liquidity from, one version to the next.
That's what the order routing tools will do. So that's what Portal X would do. That's, just name your favorite aggregator. It could be, we know that Matcha and 1inch and these different types of things, those do order aggregation on the, on the Ethereum side of things. And then whatever the front ends that people are using on the PulseChain side of things will take care of that automatically.
Did you notice the update to Matcha?
Remind me.
The look of it's a little different now. It still looks shitty compared to PulseX in my opinion. But one of the things that I thought was very cool is that previously, at least with the browser I'm using, maybe it's different per browser. I know mobile was different, but you could only set a limit order for 7 days. Well, now you can set it for 30 days. So then that way, if you've got some real like moonshot, or death, like Hail Mary type of limit order, like super low, then you don't have to worry about like resetting it all the time. You can just like hang it out there for a month and see if it hits. And obviously to the other side, like if you've got a target that you're trying to DC out on, now you can do it for 30 days over on the Ethereum side with Matcha, which I thought was pretty helpful, because I would always forget to read. I would like set reminders and then still I would miss it, and it's like, I'd have a low limit order set to buy a dip, and then it's like my limit had expired like 12 hours prior. I'm like, shit. And then I'd go reset it and I'd miss the dip, But yeah, so that I thought was useful. So that'll be fun when we can do those kind of things on PulseX. Limit orders are my bread and butter.
Somebody's asking in the comments here, is the problem that people are just too lazy to move to the V2 pools because everyone is capable of moving their liquidity? The difference is that people are earning outsized rewards that are paid in the incentive token as a part of the farming program that's for a limited time only, it appears, although it's 1 per second forever, right? Or no, it's for the first year, it's 1 per second.
Or is that 3? Is it 3 per
It's
second?
not 3. It's
One
not
per
3
second.
1 per second. 1 per second.
People
Got it.
created a rumor that it was 3 per second. and
Got
it's
it.
not.
Got it.
Yeah,
Someone else created the rumor that I was getting all of the ink coins, and that's not true either.
Briz is sitting on them all. One of the reasons not to move, right? So
I'm passing them out.
for people who are in V1, right, and they're doing the farming, right? There's potential tax implications. I'm not a tax attorney, but people have to go look at that. There's reportable stuff, maybe that they have to do. Maybe they were planning to leave it long term, so you have that issue. The other thing is, there's no guarantee because there's no information that if you pull it, that anything's going to happen on the other side.
Right.
Right. So somebody pulls a substantial amount and it's not earning. They
You're
can go,
getting you're getting the fees.
which are very small. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
relative.
Nominal, right?
Yeah, nominal. Which you say that you're getting the fees, yet I still can't find anybody to really show me how you can tell you're getting the fees.
Yeah.
You know?
Hex
I mean,
Tangent
yeah.
has a
That was
spreadsheet.
on
Good point.
Pancake or maybe Sushi Swap. I forget which one because I was trying to figure it out. And over there, they said you get the fees after you pull your liquidity. It says you get your liquidity and the fees after you pull it. So it might be similar to that.
Well, somebody was telling me that on Uni V3 that it actually shows you what your liquidity provider fees that you're earning are, but you don't see it on V2. So since we're a copy of V2, maybe once he updates that will, because it's like that is kind of sucky that you can't see what you're earning easily. It seems like that math is there. It's just a matter of like making that available like on your pool. So yeah, that's a good idea, Randy. Screenshots before and after. Yeah. So I should have done that. I've got a loose idea of what I put in, but like from personal experience in regard to the question we had up earlier about people being too lazy or whatever, not all pools are incentivized with incentive token. So why people would not be moving their liquidity in a non-incentivized pool over to V2, maybe they're just not aware. I mean, to me, that makes no sense. You should definitely pull it and move it over.
Perhaps they're not incentivized to do so.
Well, I mean, you're earning something, I mean, you're getting your liquidity provider fees, even though it's nominal, it's better than nothing on V1.
In that case, though, I could make the argument that I would leave it on V1 because it burns more PulseX.
Right. And is that a benefit that outweighs what you would get personally, right? Because, that pumps everybody. So complex math. Need somebody smarter in here than me for that. Crispy, crunch the numbers, bro.
No expectations.
No. So, but yeah, we were talking before we started up too about different tax implications. That if you're pulling and you have impermanent loss, like what's the tax implication of that? So that could be a factor too. That people are just letting it sit. So if it's a gain, it's a long-term gain instead of a short-term. Maybe, I don't know. It's like you'd have to ask people that are not incentivized why they're leaving it on V1. For me, I'm only in the pools that are receiving ink. So that's the reason I'm hanging out on V1 for now. And then if he moves those farms to V2, I'll pull everything and move it over to V2. After I talk with my tax advisor to make sure I'm not like shooting myself in the foot in some way. Not tax advice. Not financial advice.
NFA. Yeah, I know. It seems like the only people that really should be going to V2, I guess, are the people who are supporting pairs that aren't incentivized by the ink coin.
Correct.
Yep.
Hey, here's a question for you, and I think you guys are maybe a little more well-versed in the LP stuff than I am. Crispy in particular, I think, could maybe answer this for me, or maybe all of you. So I was looking at a stable pair, like USDC or DAI with Pulse. And correct me if I'm wrong, as the price of Pulse moves up and down, aren't you effectively, if you're in that pair, in a stable pair with Pulse, aren't you effectively just like kind of DCAing in and out?
Yes.
All right. Okay. And then you're earning fees while that's happening.
And if the price goes way up, you're going to be left with a bunch of cash and no PLS.
Yeah. Damn. So if you have if you're sitting on like a bag of PLS and you have intentions of scaling some of that out anyhow, it seems to me like that might not be a bad play, especially if you're in profit already. So I don't know. I'm considering it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to exit out of the system without hurting it, because you're not doing market dumps. You're letting the market come to you instead of you dumping onto the market. The only thing is that it's probably going to be a tax nightmare for your accountant.
Right.
Because
Well,
then
that's
all
why
those sells, all those buys, like, oh, the coins went up and down. But I'm sure it's probably just when you pull your LP out in total is when they'll probably do whatever.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. I'm waiting to hear back from Token Tax on that to see what their take on it is, because at this point I've got some pretty significant impermanent loss on the PulseX pair, and they said basically if I was pulling it just as a tax avoidance strategy, that could be problematic. But I explained, like, well, the reason it's on V1 is because I'm earning these incentive tokens. So if that goes away on V1, it's available on V2. That's why I would be moving. And they're like, oh, well, maybe that's different. Let's
I
get back
wonder
to
if you can be like, they're like, hey, look at all these gains you got from providing this, but you're like, but look at all the losses I got on the other
Right.
coin.
Does it offset? Right. Yeah. Because and then also, like, the question is, like, yield farming, everything that I've read so far, that's income. So that's taxed as income tax. And then same with like validating the yield. So those are things too that I need to learn more about, because that's something that, for, like, let's speculate for a second. Let's say that it is indeed the value that you receive at the time that ink tokens, when you harvest, or pulse tokens that are dripped in minute by minute when you're validating, that you are liable for the tax on that at the value it is at the time you get it. If that is indeed what's going on, then people that are trying to make sure that come tax time that they have enough USDC to pay, or USD to pay their tax, they're going to be selling 20, 30% of their yield and getting that over into cash. Because otherwise, if, let's say you made, since the launch, you made $5,000 in Pulse or something, and you owe $5,000 in income tax, or you owe whatever your percentage rate is on income tax on that $5,000, but then by the time it comes around, Pulse is down, and what you have is not even worth $5,000; it's worth $2,000. So how do you pay tax on $5,000 on an asset that's now worth $2,000? So I don't know. I'm looking into those things, and as I find them out, I'll be happy to share. Of course, everyone needs to check with their own tax attorneys and CPAs to see the best way to approach those things. But I'm doing my due diligence now, because I don't want to be scrambling at year end and then be caught with my pants down.
I have a question. How much taxes does the whale owe who sold 25 billion PLSX? How much does that guy owe, huh?
What was the dollar value?
I don't know. Did you guys hear about that though? The 25 billion
I thought it was.
PLSX?
I thought Overwatch Partners sold 2 billion.
Yeah.
But there was someone that sold 25 billion.
I thought it was like 2 billion PLS.
2 billion PLS. Right.
And
That was Overwatch
25
Partners.
billion PLSX.
Oh, they sold PLSX as well. Damn. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And I mean, if it's a PulseX, doesn't make any sense, because even if they sack, they would be like break even or down.
I think they were up when they sold, and now everyone's down.
Now
everyone's down now.
They wrecked the chart for everybody else. Yeah, I mean, with PLS, it's like I can see. I mean, to me, it seems like, do you even crypto, bro? It's like, really, you're gonna like lock money up for 2 years and like be happy with a 2x? It's like, or a 1.5x? It's like, whatever.
Well, number one wallet put in like $29 million. So if they get like a 2x on that, then, they got $30 million.
Yep.
They're not going to be able to
profit, right?
They're not going to be able to, get that kind of money out of there. But
you couldn't have a better situation than whales getting out now.
Absolutely. And it's whale games too.
And you normally, when you have something that's new, you can go back and look at any chart. It's like normally it pumps in the first 3 days. That's like the day one FOMO buyers that all of us were back in HEX, right? Even if somebody who's launching the coin says, don't buy on day one. Now that wasn't the case for PulseChain or PulseX, but it certainly was for HEX. And what did everybody do?
I bought on day one.
Okay.
That's the answer, right? That's
Yes.
no idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
from
Hey, listen, I was there. I listened to all that. It's the same old crap
Yeah.
we all do. Listening to Richard and trying to divine whether I think he means what I heard or did he mean something else, and then for whatever reason the FOMO overtakes you, and I throw 2 ETH in on day one, right? When I could have just waited 33 days. Just
Wow.
33 days.
That's right. Yeah, it bottomed on day 33. You could have bought 100 million hex for one Bitcoin
Wow.
on day 33, right? So I don't remember what Bitcoin was at that point.
So the hex bottom was day 33.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Depending
January 5th,
if you
I
go by
believe.
like the close of the day, or if you go by like
Right.
intraday weird people trading outside the adoption amplifier, this and that. But yeah,
Yeah. For
It
some
was
reason, I
over
thought it
a
was
million hex per
And
ETH.
yeah. Now I'm a heavy hitter, man. I put $10 in that day.
Mm.
I'm heavy.
Thanks.
Woo.
right.
I
Yeah,
put
I think
money
I
in
did
on
like
day 35.
That was the best $10
There
I
you
ever
go.
spent.
I did like a
There-
tenth of an ETH because I got scared and I started. I was doing like an ETH a day, and then I backed off and did like a tenth of an ETH that day.
because there was so much FUD. Yeah,
Right.
everybody
Yeah.
was backing off, and that's what
Yeah.
caused the price to be able to go so low because
And the
nobody
price
wanted
kept
to buy
going
it.
Yep.
down,
Yeah,
too.
yeah. And I think that was a topic of a stream I did today. We're just in day 25. Maybe we ticked over to day 26 now. So the FUD isn't nearly as bad here right at the moment after PulseChain, which maybe is not a good thing. Maybe we need more FUD. But kind of relating it to Hex, day 33 was kind of like the bottom of the bottom, and then we needed to wait 3-4 months to see how things developed. And so people who are looking for 100x by Monday might be disappointed.
Right.
So you got to stick with this stuff. You made it this far, you got here. Not financial advice. If you really need it, sell it all. But if you're interested in staying into PulseChain, I would expect 3 to 4 months things will look a lot different.
Right. Well, something else too, if memory serves, because there was a lot of comparison to the EOS launch for Hex, and if I remember correctly, Richard was saying like the best time to buy EOS was like day 105. So like wait for the dip, is more or less what he was saying. Like it's not going to just go straight up out of the gate, and I think that's maybe where Johnny's getting his thing because my thinking was like give it 3 or 4 months and DCA in. I mean, DCA is always a good idea, generally speaking, I think. But yeah, it's like give it 3 or 4 months to kind of see if it finds a bottom, and then you're going to be better off than trying to ape in on any given day.
Yeah, I'm adding, and I'll be tracking that too. Hopefully, I have something another week for you we can actually look at. But
Cool.
I've been doing this DCA tracking every Wednesday, and it's very difficult, right? So I do this dedicated stream looking at DCAing. When you look at the DCA, you go, "Oh, look, this one's doing great. It's in the green." That isn't the one you should be buying, right? If you're trying to do DCA, it's not the one that's doing great. It's the other ones, and it's so funny how humans are. We are attracted to those green candles. But I'll add PulseX. Maybe I'll add a couple other things there to talk about, just for DCA. What would it look like if on, day 7 you had DCA'd in with $200 plus day 14 plus day 21, and we'll track it and see what happens with it and how it turns out. Now I'm rooting for the home team, but it's good to see the real factual numbers, right? Nobody can argue with those.
Before we go around the room here and we played this game like a couple of months ago where everybody had to choose an asset that they wanted to give the elevator pitch for. But while we're preparing to go into that, I do want to announce that I am doing a meetup here in Las Vegas tomorrow night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Nerd on Fremont Street. It's like on the second floor of a building called Necropolis. and I will be giving away rare Hex T-shirts
Cool.
from the first Hex meetup of all time, the first mass, well, not the first of all time, but the first mass Hex meetup. And then from Hexpo.Vegas, the conference that is still holds the record for the largest Hex meetup of all time. So, you know, even if you know people in the Vegas area who are just into crypto a little bit, maybe they like Bitcoin or Ethereum, maybe they like PulseChain or Hex, you can bring whoever you want and get a free T-shirt.
Very cool.
Did
If
you
I
guys
was
see
nearby, I would come.
More
Did you
info on my
guys-
Twitter and t.me/Hex meetup.
Did you guys see the picture of Fashion Coder? The tweet with your shirt? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was the one for Hexpo Miami, which I do not have any of those shirts with me at this moment. Those shirts are also rare.
Sweet.
Elevator pitch time?
Oh yeah. So all right. So, all right.
We need a cool intro that has like an elevator that comes down.
Well, what's the
Yeah,
purpose? What's the purpose of the pitch?
Only up on the elevator. Only up.
It's an elevator pitch for the coin. You gotta.
Yeah.
We're teaching the audience about the 4 horsemen of the wrecked apocalypse.
Oh, that hurt.
Dun, dun, dun. Can I go first? And we get to pick, right? Like which coin?
So I picked last.
Okay.
Last time. So
Well,
this
then
time-
you go first.
Dibs on PLSX.
So I'm taking Pulse. Last time I took
Okay.
PLSX. This time I'm
Okay.
taking Pulse. What do you guys want?
I want EHEX.
Okay.
Okay,
Or Hex in general.
I'm calling dibs on PulseX.
PulseX.
Sorry.
And
So
Crispy Ink.
I'd like to do ink. I'd like to do ink.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. That's
Cool.
the only one left.
Oh no, then who's doing pulse? Nobody's doing pulse, right?
I'm doing Pulse.
Oh, nobody's
doing
doing
Pulse, yeah.
nobody's doing P hex. Nobody's doing real hex.
Yeah, the real.
I'm
Hex.
doing Hex and EHEX. I'll do
Oh,
both.
you can do both. Ah, you do both.
Because
That's
it's essentially the same pitch, but
Far out, Toby. Far out.
I don't have to think too hard because it's the same pitch I've been giving for 3 years. But whoever
Right.
wants to go first, I mean, I can,
Go ahead, Toby.
Go ahead. Okay. So basically, the way that I've always pitched EHEX or Hex to people prior to PHEX becoming a thing is it's essentially like a CD on the blockchain. So like your grandma gives you a $100 CD, you lock it up for a certain length of time, and you earn your 3 to 5%. You pull it out in 5 years, and you've got your extra $5 on that 100 that Granny gave you 5 years ago, right? So effectively, if you want to get out of that CD early, you can do that, but you're going to not get your 5%, right? So you'll be able to get your principal back. And that's kind of like how a CD, a certificate of deposit, works at a bank. Hex is a decentralized version of this type of dynamic run by a smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain. And essentially, you lock up your Hex for a certain length of time. And based on the length of that lockup, you can earn an average of about 38% more Hex during your lockup period. So the question might be, and this is often the one that I get from people that are paying attention or a little quicker. They're like, well, so what? You get more Hex. What if the price just goes to hell? Well, if you do the math on it, if you're earning an average of 38% more Hex per year, the Hex price could go down approximately 20% a year, every year, forever, and your dollar of value would be effectively the same. So essentially what's happening, and this is where I got some kudos from Richard himself on this little pitch, is that Hex staking will hedge you to the downside because you're getting more tokens as the price is going down. So you're kind of, minimizing that loss. And then it amplifies the gain because if, your coin is 2x, 10x, 100x, you now have 40% more coins than you did to begin with. So you have 40% more coins that are going to, help realize that 2x, 10x, 100x. So, that's kind of my short and sweet elevator pitch on Hex in general. The thing that I'd want to throw in about EHEX now that we have Hex on 2 chains, and I know that there was some pretty furious, debate, let's say, with different people like kind of aligning themselves on one against the other. I
The
think that
elevator's getting to the top floor.
yeah, I'm getting real close. So basically, I think the short version is people need to be aware of not just the fees on Ethereum, but the yield. So if the staking behavior is different on EHEX than PHEX, and you have a higher yield, then larger players, that additional yield, even if it's a fraction of a percent, is going to more than make up for whatever the Ethereum fee is to end those stakes. So EHEX is far from dead, in my opinion. I think PHEX is the obvious one if you want to onboard a newer, smaller user, but both should be presented so they can make their own choice.
And where do we buy?
I currently use Matcha for EHEX purchases with limit orders. For PHEX, I am doing that on PulseChain, on PulseX.
I go to my local coffee shop and I ask for some matcha tea or what?
Well, you could sip some matcha tea as long as you're surfing on a secure internet connection at your coffee shop. You shouldn't be doing any of this on your phone, but if you have your laptop with you and you have a secure internet connection and you want to go to matcha.xyz, then you can purchase Hex there.
Sweet.
All right, I'll go. So the elevator pitch for PLSX. Basically, one of the great questions about most of these cryptos is who's gonna buy this coin after me? That's the question. When you buy something like PLS, you go, hey, it has a function, has a utility, it's oil. More people need to buy this to use it. That's why people are going to buy it after you. We talk about uh, Hex. Why are you gonna buy Hex? It's like it has utility. You stake it, you earn more Hex. You put your money to work. That's why people are gonna keep buying this asset after you. So you have to ask yourself, who's gonna buy the PLSX coin after me? And the answer is that there is always a buyer of last resort. And who is that buyer? It's the actual exchange, PulseX. So every time there's a trade done on the exchange, it buys a little bit of PulseX off the market, and then it sells it. So it adds buy pressure and it gets rid of the sell pressure. And it doesn't even matter which coins are traded. It will do it with any coin. So people don't even have to be buying PulseX. It's going to automatically they're automatically buying it no matter what. And then we've come to a recent finding that everyone who provides liquidity on V1, they actually don't get any trading fees, and all the fees go to the buy and burn, which is just it's kind of like a forest buy and burn. It's burning the whole place down. We've burnt down so much of the user controlled supply. It's insane. So that's my elevator pitch for PLSX is that it always has a buyer of last resort. Therefore, number will go up as long as people are interested in the DEX, and this is going to be one of the most popular DEXs in the world.
So instead of Smokey the Bear, it's Smokey the Bull.
Yeah, Smokey the Bull. There you go. Wait, that's something else actually. But anyways, Ink, ChrispyMan, what do you think?
What do I think? Well, so ink is not for the novice, probably not for the novice, and not for the faint of heart. Incentive token, which we call ink, is what's being provided to people who provide large liquidity, not just large liquidity, but liquidity on V1 of PulseChain, and also deposit those LP tokens into the farm. It's meant to be an incentive to bring people into our community, right? What does that look like? Looks like if you are a wrapped Bitcoin holder outside of our community, if you bring wrapped Bitcoin, bring your value to our community, you will be rewarded with incentive token. So on the very surface, that's the function, right? The function is to provide the thick liquidity where we need it within the system. Now, why buy it? Why buy it? Well, so this is very interesting to me, and I'm watching this develop. This is a brand new market. I've heard some arguments about it being sell-only token. I've also seen some moon math about very high prices. But basically, the tokenomics of the incentive token, as Maddie had said earlier, is you only one gets made per second today. But over time, that reduces year over year. So it becomes more and more rare in the future. So what does that mean to you and me? It means that in the future, if you do choose to try to get it through farming, it will be more and more difficult to farm with the same value and obtain incentive tokens. I mean, it's kind of a general statement because we know farms will change. But now it's kind of works a little bit. Some people compare it to TShares. Some people compare it to Bitcoin. It creates a situation where over time it becomes more and more rare. And you say, well, so yeah, so what if it's a coin that people are selling anyways? What difference does it make if it becomes rare? Well, the market makers, remember, there's people that make markets here. The market makers are making a market. The larger, and all we have to go off of is what we're seeing on chain. The larger players and even some smaller players are accumulating incentive token with the idea that in the future they will have cornered the market. And you can see it day over day. Some of the buys are automated, but just that the ink is being stacked up. So they are going to make a floor. And that floor, yeah, sure, it'll be volatile. Price will follow pulse more than likely up and down. So there will be that. And so this is a haven for speculators who want to speculate on maybe some mad gains on incentive token during the bull run. That's a possibility. And how the regular Joe could play this is, if they chose it, to play this speculative kind of role, is pick up some ink, and with the idea they're going to hold on to most of it and be able to, over time, as the price rises, sell it off. I mean, that would be a way to do it. It's not typically the kind of thing we talk about in our community to do. It's not like hex centric, but that's kind of the pitch, right?
Bing.
I wonder if
Reached
one
your
day
floor.
it'll have like governance abilities. I wonder.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't bring it up, but I did look at the code today, and the code says that it can be used for governance, and I know there's
Really?
rumor of that, but since we don't know about it, I didn't include it. But I do know that people are accumulating it because we can see it on chain. I mean, the buys are going through. And you look at the buys, you got 100 people buying thousands and thousands selling singles, right? So it is, they're changing hands and they're getting stacked.
Did you see the $1 million market buy on Inc?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
I heard
but
about that. Around $20, right?
Yep.
yeah, but if you go look, I mean, there's every hour there's 60, 50, $100,000 buys, and so, but I can't tell you I understand it all, to be able to really truly explain this correctly, but I understand that the market is being made right now. That's what's happening.
Well, and to kind of support Briz's pitch for PulseX, it's like all of that activity is resulting in more PulseX being burned.
Correct.
Because a portion of those fees are being sent to the buy and burn. So that reduces the supply of PulseX, and that is good. And like when people are asking me, like, okay, between the four, like, what would you be buying right now? It's like I'm looking at what I think has the best discount. And personally, right now, I think it's HEX and PulseX. I think those two are the most undervalued of the four, with what I know at present.
Yeah, I know this is outside the scope of our pitch, but you are seeing that those APYs are changing, and and in other words, the ETH APY is coming up above the PulseChain APY as we kind of expected and predicted. But if you're looking at having value that you're trying to earn yield on, the plays are tough, man. And I think that Access Alive said it best with the idea that the store of value, the yield of choice will be HEX. It will be HEX because you can do these other things, and there's other protocols are coming out. I get that, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with them, but there's nothing that's quite as straightforward and as simple as stake and earn. I don't have to worry about LP. I don't have to worry about it being, about impermanent loss. I don't have to worry about the farm being pulled. I mean, those are all great things. I can earn on those, right? But if I just want to depend on passive income as you described, that's what I'd be looking at.
Maddie, I know it's your pitch now, but can I just share one meme I made earlier today?
Go for it.
All right, because we're talking about it right here. It's the ink farmer meme.
Hey,
I just said often looked down on as lesser, but ink farmers are the backbone of Richard Hart ecosystem. They provide the liquidity that so many want.
stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
That's right.
I thought that was funny.
So Toby's muted. So $1 million of ink at $20 is like almost 14 hours worth of ink.
Oh wow.
What's that statistic?
So if you divide 1 million by $20, you get 50,000 ink tokens. And then if you divide that by 60, then you get how many minutes that it took to generate that. And then if you divide by 60 again, then you get how many hours. And the number of hours is very close to 14.
Oh.
Like 14 pulses.
Yeah. Interesting. Are you speculating who might have done that $1 million buy?
Toby.
No.
No, good.
Um,
Wasn't me, dude. Wasn't me.
But
I was joking for anybody listening.
I want to hear about Pulse. Can someone pitch Pulse?
Sure, I could do that. So let's say that you are one of the 100 million users on Ethereum, or at least addresses out there in the world, and maybe you hold some sort of ERC20 token. Well, now you could absolutely get a free copy of your token because there was a fork, kind of an airdrop fork situation. And this is one of the things that people love about crypto is free money and fair distribution. Well, now you have these tokens on a new network. All you have to do is go to PulseChain.com and click connect to your MetaMask. And then you'll be able to see, once you add the contract addresses from Ethereum, you'll be able to see your tokens in MetaMask. But wait, there's a catch. You have to have Pulse in order to sell them. So, why don't you, head over to one of the reputable places that you can buy PulseChain and buy some PulseChain tokens, because that's kind of the freemium onboarding experience that kind of has been set up here. You really can't do anything on the Pulse network without Pulse, and just like you can't do anything on Ethereum without the Ether token or the Ether coin. And one of my favorite things that I think people will be able to do on PulseChain is to be able to time lock using Time Pays Me, to be able to do a behavior unlocking program for yourself. So yeah, it wouldn't be possible if you didn't have PulseChain coins. So that's why I'm getting mine today.
Call to action. That's nice.
Where can I get mine, Maddie?
I have no idea.
Pulse? You don't know where I can get any Pulse?
I mean, you could go to plsburn.com, I think. And while you're there, you can get a new profile picture for your Twitter profile. And that's really exciting to me as well.
And then, of course, the Pulse native bridge. So if people are more comfortable and more familiar with trading on Ethereum, they could go to Richard Hart's Twitter, find the contract address for Wrapped Pulse, the new Wrapped Pulse, buy that with Ethereum or whatever you're holding on the Ethereum blockchain. Use Richard Hart's bridge that you can find that link on PulseChain.com. Bridge that wrapped Pulse over, and it automatically unwraps into Pulse on the Pulse chain. Boom. Easy.
I have an onboard who I'm meeting with today, and he bought Bitcoin on PayPal, and so he had to spend multiple hours like being allowed by a middleman to send it to another middleman named Coinbase. And that, but see, I wanted him to set up his Coinbase because then he'll have an off ramp already set up. And so then it took a couple hours for him to get his license, scanned, and then to be allowed to send the Bitcoin that he had just put into a fresh account there. They usually hold on to that extra long. And then got him set up with MetaMask for him to be able to write down his words and all that good kind of stuff, and encouraged him to get a hardware wallet. And so he's already getting started in the ecosystem by taking self-custody, and I educated him on the risks and benefits of self-custody, that you can screw it up yourself. So that's why you have to take it seriously. And that's what crypto is all about, is being able to have control of your own funds. So
Cutting out that middleman.
once he has his Bitcoin swapped to Ethereum on Coinbase, or swapped to USDC, if I was going to loan him some ETH, then he'd be able to send it to his MetaMask wallet, and then he'd be able to use the bridge at PulseChain.com once I gave him a little bit of Pulse to do the transactions. And that's why you need Pulse.
Yep. Hey, I know we were talking about DCA earlier, and this is a little bit of shameless self-promotion, and I don't make anything off of this. I'm not selling anything. There's no way
What
for
are
you
you
to get
trying
me
to pitch me
any
here?
money. Tobiwan TA time. So basically, I had someone that was giving me grief of like, man, it's like you said you bought EHEX at 7 cents, and I told you it was going down, and like he just totally like went after me like angrily. And I'm like, well, obviously you're not paying attention to my TA and the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to show people levels of support and resistance. So I linked the tweet in the private chat, Matt, if you want to bring it up. But what I did is I just showed one of my charts, and then and this is as best I could do trying to do this drawing on my phone, but it's like I put little green arrows everywhere that I DCA'd in. And the thing that I'm trying to get across to people is like, DCA is great, but informed DCA is even better. So basically, it's just the chart kind of tells the story. And this is just kind of reiterating what I was just saying, how someone was giving me a hard time about buying at 7 cents. And then you can see where I bought at all of those green arrows. And had I bought every day instead of just at those green arrows, my cost average on those purchases would be considerably higher. So that's where some TA can come in handy to kind of give you ideas of the general direction of things and where you're likely to get a bounce. Now, obviously, we're not out of the woods. We could be going lower from here. I think that we're finding really, really strong support on that bottom white line, which is the giant white wedge that's been around since all-time high. So, is this the bottom? Maybe, and then curiously enough, it's like, and I can share my screen, Maddie, if you want, of my chart. Let me do that real quick, and then if you want to throw that up, it'll be super, super quick and painless and easy. But there, did it do it? I had problems.
We got 280 people watching live, thousands on the replay. Hit the like and subscribe button.
Hit the like and subscribe button.
Get out.
Replay gang. Leave a comment in the description below.
Or we will assimilate you.
Right.
So I'm not able to share it, but basically on that chart that he shared on my Twitter, you can see that, and I'll be posting my daily update later after I get off stream. But I think we found really good resistance or support rather at the bottom of that white wedge. So if we do dip lower, one of the curious things I found, one of the strong areas of support is 0.7 of a cent, so 0.007. And when we had that big dump right after mainnet launched, I think it was buck fiat, it actually took us right down to 0.007, which was really, really curious to me. So, that was interesting. And then, of course, like the low is the doomsday is the post big payday dump, which is 002. Now, do I think we're going down that far? I certainly don't think so. I think there, have to be some black swan event that would drag everything down considerably. And even if we did reach some of these levels below the white wedge, I think that those will be bought up quickly, because it's like if you look at that wick that went down to 0.007, in that same day, it retraced back to 3.2 cents. So
who the heck is
the
selling
wicks are getting
EX at these levels?
Well, it looks like a pretty good balance between buyers and sellers. I mean, we're staying right on, like we're right at 11.9 right now, like 1.19 cents. So that seems to be like where we're sticking. The interesting part is like on that, if you want to bring that tweet back up, Maddie, you can kind of see it in the tweet as well. There's a descending yellow parallel channel, and we're coming to the edge of that just by the sideways action. So that would typically be kind of like a deciding point. Like, are we going to, if you just look at where that descending channel crosses right there at the bottom, where the white line is coming across, it kind of forms a bit of a triangle there, right? So there's potential, like by, I think it's Thursday or Friday. I can't remember when I posted this. Yeah, I think it's Thursday or Friday. We're basically right at the tip of that, which is right at the edge. So either we're gonna work our way back down below the white wedge, which I don't see happening. Not financial advice, but I think I think we probably will see a break toward the upside within the coming days.
So are you saying on Thursday we might go up, down, or sideways?
It could be up, down, or sideways.
But not backwards.
You nailed it. You sir have been paying attention. It is possible that we could go up, down, or sideways. But if we do move up and we break and hold, typically the measured move on that is the height of the channel, and that would take us up around 2.8 cents. So I would like a pump like that. And then that's working us back toward, you can see that the yellow vertical line, which is the measured move if we break out. And just a bit above that is the top of the white wedge. So if we get back to the top of the white wedge and break that, we're back in bull territory, in my opinion. We've just kind of been working it out for the last few weeks with all the speculation and FUD and everything else around PulseChain. But informed DCA, I think, is the way to go. If you can make a more informed decision, you're going to make better buying decisions. And that's what I've been doing. So not financial advice, do your research, all that fun stuff. But thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah, I want to point out a tweet that's related to this whole predicting the future thing and being affected by prices. It's something that Richard had tweeted earlier today. It's not the first time he said it, but I think that it's worth revisiting because it's such an important part of the emotional, aspect of reacting to price and patience.
I haven't even seen this.
I'll read. This is a pretty long tweet from Richard. I'll read it and then I'll explain what I think it means. So here he says, innovative ideas. You can tie your feelings to price based on time instead of percent. It helps you understand that when something was not so long ago a thing, it can be that thing again. As a thought experiment, in a world where everyone is sensitive to dips because of Keynesian ratchet, imagine a whale market bought and then market sold a minute later, making a giant move up and down. All the percent-based pain guys would be in horror because a single whale bought and then sold. Because for a moment, the price was higher. The time-based guys would feel it just went back to the price of a minute ago. So if you think about like zooming out over time, so let's take Bitcoin as an example. Let's say that the price of Bitcoin, spiked up to $1 million per coin for 1 second, and then it dropped right back down to the normal price. How many people would be psychologically wrecked from that? Probably a lot, because they would be lying to themselves and they'd be saying, oh, all 10 billion of us, all 10 million of us people who own one Bitcoin, like we all could have sold that, but they couldn't have, right? It's there wasn't enough liquidity for that to be the case. And so I think what Richard is saying here, or at least what I'm getting from it, is that just because you see a number, a number on a screen doesn't mean that that's the real number that you can get to sell it. And it doesn't mean that you should let your emotions be swayed so much. If the price of HEX goes up a lot and then it goes down, well, how long ago was it that this was a new all-time high at that same price, or was a good buying opportunity at that same price?
Yeah, I'd say that sentence where it says all the percentage-based pain guys would be in horror. That just it completely reminds me of before HEX, and I'm trying to tell everyone to buy Bitcoin, and it's at like $9,000, $6,000, and everyone's like, wasn't that like $17,000 not that long ago? And you're like, yeah, but it was also $600 not that long ago.
Yes.
So yeah, so I would say most normies fall into the percentage based pain guys.
Absolutely.
Hey, Bobby Axelrod was asking a question in chat. I replied to it with, it took a minute to find it because the link is a little strange, and I'll drop it in private, Maddie, if you want to bring it up. But he was asking about a good descriptor of like how EESs, like how those penalties are calculated. And long ago, there was a wiki hex page, which now is just a series of numbers for the website. But if you want to pull it up, you can share that, and it's basically kind of a breakout of like how you can determine what a penalty will be for a given stake.
I've never heard that term before, Keynesian ratchet.
Yeah, I was going to Google that. I actually already made a note of it.
I know Keynesian is like a economic school of thought.
So John Maynard Keynes was the founder of the Keynesian school of thought of economics, which like is the major branch of economics today that the Chicago School of Economics goes with, and that's gotten the most Nobel Prizes in economics in the world. And it's completely it's basically like the whole modern monetary theory falls into this category of Keynesian logic, where if you keep printing money, then everything's safe.
A bunch of inflation lovers.
Yeah, basically, like you can make money out of thin air, and that's going to be the best money just because the government's backing it, and you never have to worry about anything ever again. It's that's what Alan Greenspan and all these different people who have set the policy at the Federal Reserve for the past however many years since we went
120 years.
Has been moving toward making this idea more and more popular. When you go and read one of the best books about cryptocurrency ever, called The Bitcoin Standard by Safety, and I shook his hand in Miami a couple weeks ago because I got to basically go to a dinner with him. He talks about it a lot in the Bitcoin Standard, and I would highly recommend you checking that out. He also did a lot of podcasts about it, basically calling Keynes he was definitely somebody who had Sun Well syndrome, or like was raised to be really disrespectful towards money. He like traveled around and was like just kind of a drunkard and being an asshole to everybody. It wasn't like even a cute outrage marketing thing either. So
it was just more like the money amplified his actual personality.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what Richard means here in this context of referring to a Keynesian ratchet. Maybe.
Well, he's saying everything's sensitive to dips, so it's almost like when one thing dips, everything starts dipping and dipping and dipping.
That could be
what it kind of sounds like. But luckily, because of the Keynesians, we now have the
Keynesian.
soundest money on earth, the US dollar.
Which has its advantages and disadvantages, but our made up imaginary internet money is better than the government's made up imaginary internet money. So, who said that?
Mr. Richard Hart.
All right. As seen in the highest of stakes. Coming soon, 2022, 2023.
So, the funny part is I've always been very anti-Keynesian. I've always been more
Keynesian.
towards the Austrian school of economic thought.
You're a good Bitcoiner.
Yeah, do you
I'm a
want to
good Bitcoiner.
do you want to borrow my
store
glasses so you can
value,
look more nerdy?
scarce assets. I think are the best units of money that we can have. But with that said, I always found it kind of funny that Richard turned me into a slight Keynesian because Hex has forever inflation. Um, but what I've kind of come to learn is that inflation isn't necessarily bad. It's all about who gets the inflation. And inside our current system, the inflation goes directly to the banksters first, and then they sell it to us, which isn't right, in my opinion. Um, just imagine when the debt ceiling got raised and they're like, okay, guys, we got to print out another $1 trillion. Imagine if that $1 trillion went to our bank accounts first, and then they had to ask for it to fund whatever they wanted to fund. That would be a lot better, I think, than the current situation where that money just goes to the banksters and then they just pass it out to all their friends and sell it to the plebs. So I always thought it was kind of funny that Richard turned a kind of a horrible thing into something pretty awesome.
And ChrispyMan just dropped this, and then so I added it to the Twitter space.
Nice.
What is the ratchet effect? One of the Keynesian theories, a ratchet effect, says that once prices have increased in lockstep to a risen aggregated demand, they don't reverse when the demand decreases.
Like houses or something? Is that a good comparison?
I was thinking about it in crypto. We had this event here when we were doing the ratio trading. Maybe one of the effects would be how PX has become valuable in terms of pulse. And that once that kind of standard is set, it's very difficult to reverse it. Along with that, the ratio between PX and EX, it may be difficult, because at one point there was a belief, there was lots of buying going on, that at least the market believed this momentarily, right? The PX more valuable than EX, and it set a band. So perhaps now, that's how it is forever. To some extent, right? I mean, I'm sure it changes, but the last few days, the ratio has been really solidly the same every day, day in, day out, so maybe that's what he's getting at. It could also refer to some other things happening on PulseChain, Well, I'm not really a great Richard whisperer. I can handle plain language, but the rest of the stuff is tough to understand. So I'm just applying it. But.
Can I bring something up? Maddie, you mentioned earlier about profile pictures on
That's
PLS
right.
Burn. Let me add this to the stream. And so if you go to plsburn.com, you can see that they have these pretty cool borders for your profile pictures. You just upload a picture. I uploaded this particular one of a of a bullish sentimental. And this is the PulseChain border, but then they also have PulseX, which you could also say maybe is an ink too. You got HEX. That's pretty cool. HEX 2, which actually turns it into a hexagon. That's pretty cool. Triple.
That's a bull there.
Yeah, triple and then Validator. Actually, I
That's
really like
cool.
the Validator one.
Yeah,
That
I like
one's
that
pretty
one.
cool. I was like thinking about, I'm like, what is this? I think I figured it out. It's that planet on PLS Burn that shows all the different validators. That's why it has that blue ring.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you guys want a profile picture, come over to PLS Burn/border, and you guys can put a border on your profile pictures.
Right on.
Shout
I
out
dig it.
to on the Twitter user Tango_5555, who is the first one to make an app like this that was called PulseChainify.com. And that's what I was using yesterday. And then I saw that Richard had sent out the website PulseChainify. And then, turn around 24 hours later, and PLS Burn had their own version as well. And so shout out to everybody out there in the HEX community, this decentralized group that's making it really easy to put up your team colors and, to have access to these resources.
Yes, thank you to everyone.
Absolutely.
Thank you to the builders.
It's amazing, man. It's like, think about, we've all been around for a minute. It's like, think about how tiny comparatively our community was, like when it started off. And like, it's talk about going viral. We have so many more streamers and so many more builders. Like, it's humbling, really.
We're stacking them up. Maddie, is it time for me to show the screen? If you show my screen,
please. Here it is.
You
can see it.
Crispy, can I take my nap now?
Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
This is the most exciting chart.
There it is. That's what we want.
There it is. This is the chart. This is the one you got to see, though, Toby.
Yeah.
So we're just looking at HEX in terms of pulse, what it costs in pulse. You can see after our very turbulent few days there earlier this month or end of last month, we've kind of flattened out last few days. Will that last? I don't know. Percentage of EHEX PulseX slowly rising a little bit. Will that stay? I don't know. But these are the HEX prices in terms of pulse and what it costs. And then Maddie, we're going to have to do something for you. I haven't done that yet. I probably should have done it first for you, but we do have the chicken wing chart. And so we could have done this price pizza in PulseX and added it here. But this is we had a meetup in Mexico. I wasn't there, but people did. And, they were buying chicken wings with Pulse. And so here's the cost of chicken wings in the U.S. and Mexico, approximately. And that. So we're seeing some cool things happen out there. So I plan to add many more commodity charts, as many as they'll take. Probably the most exciting news we've been seeing here is we are seeing a increase in engagement for HEX. So I like that part. Overall, unique addresses are going up. On this particular chart, I know I showed this to you guys before, but on the left-hand side, pre-bridge, right-hand side, post-bridge, unique addresses up 3% since before the fork. And we've had over 58,000 wallets active since the fork. So I thought that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, Casey's asking
58,000
wallets.
Nice.
Yeah. That's a lot of wallets, man. Hey, listen, can poo it away, but man, I can't type that many times, right? So I don't think I'd be able to do 58,000 transactions by hand. So that's a lot of
man. That's so bullish because people have multiple wallets, so that number could be like as low as like 25,000 actual people. And if we
That's
have
true.
that like few people in our system, dude, when we get to 1 million actual users, man, that is going to, it's the Metcalfe's law, right?
That's right.
100%. 100%. I mentioned before, and it's kind of corresponds with a question that's in the chat from Casey. We are seeing short staking on Pulse right now. It looks like it's a little bit higher. We'll have more information over the next couple of weeks. We'll be able to start analyzing this further. And we are definitely seeing the two systems begin to diverge. When we look at the number of TShares that are out there, the TShares on Pulse are now higher, the count, than on ETH, and correspondingly the payout's pretty much the same. I mean, there's some variation due to penalties, but the APY is now higher on ETH. You're seeing that day over day at this point. So that's one of the potential selling points, right? Higher APY, on the Ethereum side of HEX. So, but yeah, things are starting to come together information-wise. We'll be able to see that over time, and of course, payouts per T-share is pretty close on both chains right now. That's going to take some months to really deviate, and then share rates as well. I mean, they might as well be the same chart, and that goes back to, we've talked about this in the past, but it goes back to the fact that a lot of those changes are built in already. We have a fork chain, so we have a fork contract. The contract already has all of these stakes programmed in, and they're going to do a certain thing. And so until we change it as miners, it's not going to change. And it takes a lot of activity. This is one of the best parts about HEX, right? It takes a lot of activity to change it significantly. I mean, you'd have to see like Uber adoption on one of the chains, or lots and lots of emergency end stakes all at one time to really start affecting that, so that you see it change today, and go in a different direction. But,
hey, Crispy, do you have the difference in the the HEX per T-share per day payout between EHEX and PHEX?
yeah.
Is that effectively what that was just showing? Or
Yeah,
is it something more concise?
yeah. It's payout per day as well as overall payout. And again, they're kind of built. It's kind of built in, right? In that, if you pop that back up, Matty, I'm sorry, I took it down. So we look at the overall payout, which is the overall payout per day. You can see it's pretty close. I mean, on this chart, you can't even tell that it's going up and to the right, because it's just such a short time frame. But you can see, yes, we've had some emergency end stakes and some different things that created payout, but generally they're right around the same number. And so what that translates to is just a little bit higher payout per T-share on ETH, but it's even harder to see that over time because, again, things are happening right now. We just need to see some months go by, and then they'll start clearing up a little bit.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was data to kind of support my theory that would kind of be the way it plays out, that maybe there's larger, longer stakes on EHEX over time and less stakers than there are on PulseX. Or I'm sorry, on PulseChain.
Yeah. I think you're going to see that. I don't think it's going to be quite as extreme. Listen, a lot of different things can happen, right? But, I fully expect that Ethereum HEX will continue on. But it might not be quite as extreme as we think it is as far as how big they are, but versus small stakes, because it's just how, it's how people think, right? When they go into it.
It's the same contract on both sides. They're both working the same way, and we're not going to see just a ton of one-sided action that really drives these metrics in a huge divergence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my thought was that even if it's a fraction of a percentage different, and there's that adds up. Like if it's a bigger stake, if it's a smaller stake, then maybe it's negligible. But if it's
Butterfly effect.
Right. Yeah, more or less. But it's like, it's bigger stakes, and so, a 20th of a percent or something is going to be a lot more over time on a big stake than, if you're comparing apples to apples, like that same size stake on Ethereum versus Pulse.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm fully on board with laddering, but when I do look at Ethereum, and I'm over there, I've done 30-day stakes, particularly coming into this, right? Because I was waiting. I'm trying
Baller.
to, have things. Yeah, I know you know that, Chris. You do that stuff too. But I mean, it was a cost to me $25 to end a stake, right? That was palatable with a large enough stake. It was fairly palatable. Maybe I wouldn't make the same decision right now. I have to think this through, to do a 5-year stake or a 7-year stake if I think that that's going to turn into $1,000, $10,000 fee, right? Whatever the hell you want to make it up to be, right? So I could see, perhaps some skittishness even on Ethereum for not doing longer stakes and maybe going with a different protocol, something like that. Like
I'll have to play.
like the Maxi or something. But
Right. I'll have to play around with the math a little bit and see if I can get something more digestible that's like quantifiable. Like if you're going to stake 1 million hex on both, and this is the current hex per T-share payout per day, what that difference is at the end, and does that truly offset, what the ETH gas fee would be to end it theoretically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do we want? Can I talk about the breaking news? We
Which
have
one?
breaking news.
What broke?
Richard Hart just tweeted.
He tweeted? What did he tweet?
He was twitting.
Let's see. This is what he says. I'm gonna try and make it bigger for everyone. Richard tweeted, "Did you know that the first 4,096 PulseChain validators bound their payout keys to a burn address, so their coins are burnt forever. Even when they exit being a validator, their 32 million coins per validator are just burnt forever."
Wow.
You guys can see the burn address here.
That seems like some benevolent. That seems like some very benevolent behavior.
It's 131 billion tokens or coins.
Right.
Sounds like he thought PLSX was getting a little lonely with their 130 billion burnt.
Hey, this is actually a pretty good answer to some of the critics about OA-ish stuff,
OA behavior.
Also kind of a confirmation about maybe what the intent is long term, the turnover validation to the community, by extracting. And it makes sense to me that they get burned, right? Because a validator has to set up an address. If those validators were set up with the burn address, which we know they were, and then they get burned when they exit. There's no way to change that.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's pretty awesome. So so he can't be like, check it out, they're all going to a burn address, and then like a week later send it to his own personal thing, right?
That's right.
It's awesome. That's pretty benevolent. I love it. Now we have another thing, another feather in our hat that we can point to. That's pretty awesome.
And of course, I mean, my speculation would be that that's OA related, but that's a good thing if it is.
Well, we have no idea who controls.
We do not, right? And it's or it could just be a benevolent whale, because I mean, obviously that's benevolent behavior, and even going back to the early days of Hex and the behavior prior to Big Payday, it was things that were designed to help the ecosystem long term. So I mean, that's reaffirming for sure.
It's another game theory, right? I mean, do you want those validators to keep running, burning every day, or do you want to shut them down and which marshmallow test are we going to do now? Right?
Yeah, right.
So I think that 131 billion is about 0.1% of the supply.
Nice.
Not bad. I would like to see him shut down and burn it all now, and then start another 4,000 validators the same way.
Maybe
Every
there'll
quarter.
be an event, a big payday that happens where those validators get reset every year. I don't know.
Yeah, every quarter, every 6 months, something.
I was
That would be
also
pretty cool.
thinking, imagine how many ink coins the OA is absorbing. That could also make it pretty extra scarce. Because you know the OA collects like 80% or 80 to 90% of everything. So,
Well, and the thing
we
is
don't,
too,
we
like
don't know
that.
that, and somebody could check on chain, but I wouldn't speculate as to that because that's how rumors start. So
Right.
if you want to like make a claim, like, you know,
Back it up.
show us the receipts. Otherwise,
Don't-
we don't have any evidence
Mm.
to assume that, you know, that
Crispy-
V1 of
crispy-
PulseX is giving us LP fees or that the OA is doing anything with ink.
Crispy, it's time. That's your cue to bring out the clown nose.
Yeah, I dropped it.
prove to me the OA doesn't own.
But hey, speaking of game theory, all right, here's something that sprang to mind.
Briz
Oh,
is the
freaking out, sorry.
goddamn God will.
Here's something to think about. Obviously, you know, as things continue, people are going to want to be incentivized to continue to validate, right? And if they're seeing better yield in yield farming or other places, then maybe they would start to kind of second guess their decision to validate, which I personally have thought about. And maybe less people are validating. Now, that's good for the people that remain, but generally speaking, you want to encourage validators. So if this was a thing that was quarterly or every 6 months where there's, you know, these 4,096, you know, validators that poof, they withdraw, they burn all of that. That is a temporary boost for the people that remain as validators for however many number of days until they re-up. And then if they go ahead and do it again, and you kind of see a pattern that this is something they're doing to help burn part of that pulse inflation, not only would it help the broader ecosystem, but it would encourage people to validate, because it's like, I don't want to pull my validators if like next week there's going to be another one of those burns and my yield's going to spike. So game theory.
Yep.
I mean, you know, the OA could use time pays me as a way to show the market that they aren't going to sell their coins for a certain amount of time.
Dude, how cool would that be if you saw that on chain? Like, would that be just like a banner on every stream? That would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. And it's like, you know, we already see that the OA uses utilities that it finds useful and stuff with like, you know, different dexes. Like, and we've heard Richard talk about like, here's how you set up a MetaMask, and here's how you, you know, use Uniswap and all that good kind of stuff. So,
oh, hey, speaking of utility, and it's like I was trying to check to see if he'd replied to me, and I don't see it, so I'm just gonna wing it. But Steph and I have been kind of going back and forth because I noticed I couldn't add any additional wallets to watch on Staker app, and so I reached out to him through the help link on one of my iPhones and started a message with him, and he goes, hey, have you tried updating the app? And are you running the latest version of iOS? I was already running the latest version of iOS. I updated the app, and then it proceeded to crash. So basically, I deleted the app, reloaded it, crash. So, and then I've got another iPhone, so I did the same on that to test it out, sent him a video of the process I was going through. So they're working on that. I just didn't want to put anything on Twitter because there's a lot of people that just love to hate on Steph, which I don't understand because I think he has been a great asset to the community with what he has provided for us. And Staker app was a huge onboarding tool early on, and I think still can be. So if you're on a version of Staker on an iPhone that's working presently, I would be reluctant to update until they work out whatever this kink is in it. On my Android phone, it's working perfectly. So just FYI.
Cool. Thanks for the update there.
So Toby, you just had a little game theory on the OA. I came up with my own little game theory. If you guys want to hear it,
Please
speak it.
All right. So this is a hypothetical scenario. This is always coming from the perspective of, what if I was the OA? What would I do in the best interest of this product and the community, right? And so I was just kind of thinking about um, PLS. All right, yeah, that's right. I had to remember exactly what the game theory was. PLS is kind of like digital oil, and just like physical oil, you kind of you don't really most normal people don't use physical oil as an investment property. You just kind of buy the exact amount of oil that you need, and that's kind of all you buy. You go to the store, you buy enough oil to change the oil in your car, and that's typically all you need. And that kind of and the other thing too is that when oil goes up in price, the cost of everything goes up because oil is also in everything. So and so a lot of the arguments kind of against like PHEX when the EHEX is like, well, what happens when the cost of PLS goes way up, right? Won't Pulse Chain have the same problems as Ethereum? And so I was kind of thinking in the terms of the OA, if I personally, if I had control of all the funds that the OA had, I would actually kind of think it might be in the best interest of everybody to keep the price of PLS down, to not let it rip, to not have a 1000x or even a 10,000x in PLS. And, that might make a lot of people upset. But then I say that is what the ink coin is for. That's what PLSX is for. That's what HEX is for. And so I was just kind of thinking, would everyone be upset if the OA kind of like extracted funds from the liquidity pools and artificially kept PLS down, and maybe just take them because the OA has so much PLS, they can just buy up all the dollars, take them out of the liquidity pool and hold on to them, and then kind of like put it back in little by little, giving us maybe like a 10% increase per month, giving us like a 1x every single year. Um, but keeping the value of the pulse chain down as to keep the gas prices down. So that way we don't run into the same problems as Ethereum, but also the value of PLS wouldn't rip. It would just a 1x every year. Maybe give us a quick 5 or 10x just so we can brag a little bit. But then after that, maybe just a solid 10% a month. Give
So
us a good.
I was thinking along those lines originally, but the more I've thought about it, I don't know that fits with like all the moving parts. I think that those are a lot of the moving parts that we need to be mindful of. Is like, but for example, let's say that you go back and you look at the history of Ethereum, where uh, once upon a time you had to pay 10 ETH to send Ethereum or to send an ERC20. Now, are people still paying 10 ETH to do a send? No.
Fraction.
Did the price of Ethereum, was it able to go up? Yeah. And so that's kind of where my thinking has gotten to recently, is that I think it's possible that the OA could sell Hex, could sell Pulse, could sell PulseX, could sell anything. I don't think it's likely though, because I think that the OA could sell, luxury items or space rocks or um, Bitcoin or Ethereum or $700 million worth of DAI that's sitting on chain. I don't know why the OA would like sell the thing that has the lowest liquidity. You know, all these RH tickers, when there's such high liquidity things to be sold. Other than, yeah, you know what Briss is saying with wanting to keep fees low. Look, we saw Vitalik do it. The Ethereum Foundation did it, where they tried to fix the fee problem by dumping the price of ETH, and that did hurt people who are using it as a store of value. So until we get more, I think like, you know, until we get more signals, it's going to be like how Hex was, where there is some uncertainty.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, I'm not gonna crap on your idea, Bruce. I've heard some other
No,
people
please.
talking about it too. Why wouldn't we just make a change to the validators and lower gas, right? I mean, none of this stuff's set in stone. I don't think, right? It can be changed. We could actually lower the gas, right? So,
Well, it's the market demand for block space and it's the dollar price that people are willing to pay that determines like how expensive transaction fees are at the end of the day.
right.
Well, didn't Richard address this by saying, you know, that as far as gas fees go, it's as simple as moving a decimal point? I think there's other ways that they can address those concerns about the, you know, how much pulse it takes to do a particular transaction, because the price is only one factor. Like I got a bunch of blowback on Twitter because I asked the question, like, well, as this goes up, is this a limiting factor to how high we can go? And then I got a lot of good feedback on why that's not the only thing that affects how expensive it is to do a transaction.
It's a free market, so people will pay as much as they can until they stop wanting to pay so much. Like,
And then you make a change, potentially, right?
Right.
I mean, you can't like arbitrarily change like the demand.
No, but you can change what the requirement is for gas. I
Yeah,
believe
that's what I'm saying.
I
Yeah,
believe
then-
that's what I mean.
But then the free market would adjust to that like very rapidly.
They would. They might. They might. You're right. It could be. You know, it's like trying to adjust monetary policy, right? I'm not saying it's panacea. I'm just saying if our worst nightmare comes through, and and Pulse is at $1, we might have to address this.
You could have high fees or low fees with the price of Pulse already doing a 100x. Like it's counterintuitive, and it's something that we should have an expert on to
Sounds like a
educate
good
us
idea.
all.
It's like as the price goes up, you just use less decimals or something.
Yeah, if you guys want to see the discussion on it, it's like I dropped a link to my tweet in the private chat. So, I mean, probably a little too broad to go into this late in the show. But if you want to look and see what some of the feedback was from my admittedly potentially dumb question, which was basically, forgive me if this is super dumb, I'm beyond exhausted and really should be sleeping. But for people that need, oh, wait, nope, that's the wrong tweet. Fuck. I'll find the right one. But basically, it was another forgive me tweet of mine because I thought it was a dumb question. But basically, it's like, hey, you know, if ETH goes up or if Pulse goes up 100x and we're currently paying 10 cents for a trade, aren't we now paying $10 for a trade? And if you can do trades over on Ethereum for $6, then have we kind of lost that pitch that we're cheaper than Ethereum? But, you know, my thinking is if we 10x or 100x, you know, Ethereum's probably doing, you know, multiples as well. And so much of it's traffic related. But the responses that I got were good. Like there were some educated responses to that tweet, but I'll find it. And then you guys can see like if any of that helps clarify this concern about price being a limiting factor or being or upper limits being limited by how much it'll affect gas. I mean, I still think we could do 100 or 1,000x over time, just like Ethereum did. What did they do? 14,000x in the first 2 years.
Yes.
I mean, look at Solana. Look at some of the other chains and what they were capable of.
5 years.
Yeah, right. So that's my thought on that.
Cool. Well, that'll be something that we can look forward to revisiting in the future, and I think we'll all be curious to learn more about the theories behind fee markets.
Yep. We'll see if it's actually the people that are providing liquidity on V2. We'll see if it's worth it for them.
I'll let you know.
Cool. Well, I know we're coming in on 2 hours here, and I've got to go onboard a bunch of people. So, do you guys have anything else that you want to cover for now?
No, it's great being back on stream with you guys. Missed you last week.
Yeah, glad you joined us.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Crispy is muted.
Cool.
Crispy man.
I'm glad as well. I'm glad you guys could make it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. And, for anybody who's feeling down, don't feel down. Don't feel down. Kind of remember, we're early in this whole thing. We got to get people excited, man.
Yeah.
I don't know why people were thinking that it had to do a 10,000x in 30 days. Just chill. Don't let the FOMO get you, and don't get flooded.
I've legit been having a lot of fun just playing with like PulseX and everything on PulseX, and everything's been working smooth. I don't think I've had any failed transactions, and I've been extremely happy with the PulseChain and everything that's going on. People say there's been a bug. I call it a feature, but whatever. So I've been super happy. Hey, Richard, thank you, Richard.
Yeah, we should. I agree with you. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.
I mean,
Richard.
this is like
indeed.
Everybody watching this, you guys are in. This is like the early days of Ethereum, 50-cent Ethereum.
This is like I have no fear with my economic energy in this ecosystem. I literally I'm kind of fearless at this point, which actually kind of makes me a little scared. But I'm like, man, when you're fearless, you should be like start getting scared, right?
Start questioning yourself, like, wait a minute, right? Well, because it's like we talked about earlier with like what the all-time low for HEX, like because it was unproven, it was his first token, people did start buying less because they got nervous. Well, we have a track record to look back at and see what happened with HEX, and then also a track record with what's happened with Ethereum, and this is a copy of Ethereum, with all the other fundamentals. So I've never been like as excited to buy a low as I have been lately. And I've been like aping in like ridiculous sums of money to where my fiance is like, don't you have enough? Don't you have enough of these things? I'm like, how can you not buy it at these prices? This is insane. So not financial advice, but it's like, I'm stoked, dude. It's like, I can't wait to look back and not have the same remorse I did for like scaling back my buying at the lows of HEX, because I've been amping up my buying like at these prices for all of the Richard Hart products. So thanks to Richard for kicking ass, and I think the future is bright. So I'm stoked.
Thanks to Hex Homes for the super chat. Thanks for the insights, guys, regarding future potential crazy fees. Is it feasible and/or would it be an intention to horizontally scale where RH and devs fork PulseChain with or without the copies, or is this off the table? I think anything's on the table, and we'll have to wait and see what our experts or what our informed people can tell us for next week. So until next time, come down to Fremont Street tomorrow in Las Vegas for my meetup here, and stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Briz, when fearless meme.
We are one fearless